Hygiene is super important in sex work, which is why we've partnered with Hero Soap Company, all natural soaps with no chemicals, dyes, fragrances, or parabens, which the FDA cites for being found in breast cancer biopsy and causes male reproductive problems. Hero Soap Company is veteran-owned and operated, handmade in Arizona in the beautiful USA. Subscribe for a monthly delivery of soap straight to your door every month, and for every bar purchase in a subscription, we match and send the troops a peppermint cool soap to tingle their nuts for the first time during deployment. Use my code SIA at checkout for 10% off. Let freedom clean. Hey guys, welcome back to Strip by Sia, your podcast for strippers, sex workers, all the people that are naked or have very little clothing. I am your host. I realized in the last few episodes I've never even introduced myself. I am Steph Sia, your host, aka Kimchi, aka Steph, aka Sia, whatever names you want me to go by, but that's me. But enough about me. We're going to be talking to the very lovely, the very, very freaking cool Lola Frost. I'm so excited you're here. It's been a very long time since I've seen you, so I have always admired you for so long. I've watched your performances since like your Cecil Burlesque days back at like the Kiefer Bar on Thursday nights. I totally remember that. It was a long time ago, and then you were teaching at Tantra for a bit as well, and then you were off the grid for a bit, I guess, working for the past few years, and now you're back in Vancouver, at least for now, so.
Yeah, that is correct.
Yes, but please introduce yourself to the audience. That's my own biased introduction.
Hello. It's so good to see you as well. Thank you, Steph, for having me on. I'm a fan of your work, both on the podcast, in the studio, and yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to be home and contributing again to my city that I love so very much.
Yes, because it's been a while. So we mentioned off the pod, you've been working and on the road for the past 3 years.
Yeah, correct. So I've been touring quite heavily, like between burlesque and exotic dance and teaching for, almost a decade. But the last 3 years has been 90% of my time has been on the road, and there's just not a lot of glamour in touring. Everyone's like, oh my god, it's so glamorous, you get to travel so much. I'm like, yeah, totally. I'm also exhausted.
My body is broken.
Yes, it's just you feel very extended. But I'm really glad I did it. It was a very focused 3 years for me. I had goals, and I met those goals, and now I'm just really ready to be home and refocusing into new goals.
Yes.
Because being at home for 1 week out of the month is quite trying on your emotions, your spiritual self, your physical self. A lot of the accommodations, if we're talking about the strip club world, the accommodations are less than lackluster. And when I tour for burlesque, of course, I'm staying either hotels, like nice hotels, or with friends, so like my burlesque family, so that's much more comfortable.
Yes.
It was a very focused 3 years to just be on the road working as much as I possibly could, and success. Success with the working all the time.
What brought you to getting to that point in terms of like, hey, I really want to focus. I really want to just, focus on working and touring and all that.
Yeah, money.
Money's great.
It was the only reason. Luckily my work in burlesque has, I have developed over the last 14 years, like my brand and my sort of the prominence in our industry, just from how much I've worked. And so people just keep booking me, which is fabulous because I'm really grateful for it.
Yay.
And that kind of travel and that kind of work is like my art and my very deep passion. And combining that with strip club work was always like a bit of a reprieve to go and do like a little burlesque tour inside of my strip club tours. But of course, there's like always the hilarious joke that there's no money in burlesque.
I want to get into this later for sure.
We will, yeah.
Oh
I mean,
my
even
gosh.
as a headlining international performer, it's still, you know, only maybe a couple of shows a week, and those big gigs are only a couple times a year, you know, so you can't really depend on that income. And so I have been sort of working in strip clubs for the last 6, almost 7 years, and it was very part-time, and I was just realizing that if I wanted to capitalize on income, it has to be a steady job, just like any other job you have. If you just pop into work a couple of days a month, you're not going to make any money.
No.
So I was just like, okay, focus, like tunnel vision on, goal set, let's do this. And I'm really glad I made it out the other side.
Yeah, you survived, and now you're back here.
Yeah, survival mode, it was very real. It was a very push through a lot of that to kind of just like maintain focus.
Yeah, and that's for a long time. It's not just like a couple months, not like a year, like just to be so steadfast on your goals there for the past 3 years. That takes some discipline to do.
Yeah.
That's
There was a lot of days where I was like, what is my life? I don't even know which way is up. I'm so tired. It's just like bizarre, the night schedule. Like my circadian rhythm is like woven into mornings. Like I really love daytime. I like getting up and functioning with society, but this night walker life definitely was just that consistency was new, and I just found myself certain like days just being like, I just need to lay here in a very dim lit room with my roller and my Netflix and see you tomorrow, daylight, you know? So the balance.
It's a bit of an adjustment too. It's and trying to find that balance is really, really difficult. Do you want to speak a bit about that?
The balance?
Yeah. If you have any balance or had any balance?
I mean, the balance was just taking care of yourself, you know. I mean, I learned all these hilarious tricks on how to eat very healthy in the shittiest situations. We're allowed to swear, right? It's an adult podcast.
Of course, yes. Of course.
I mean, just the food you eat and like what you put in your body, the rest that you get in between the really exhausting parts, the amount of baths I took. You know, if I was at a venue or like a house or anything without a bath, it was like the worst sort of punishment that you could possibly think of.
No.
Yeah, lots of face masks.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and I'm just really grateful. I mean, it's very isolating to be on the road that much by yourself. And occasionally you tour with people that you know or like, you know, that you have a similar schedule. My sister and I used to travel a little bit together as well, so it was nice to have some company.
Yeah.
But I have a big support system, you know, of like humans that I love and that I care about, and that was really a lifeline, even just knowing that they were out there, or if I really needed something or someone, that of course they would be there for me. But there was just so much, like some days you're just so tired and like quite at your ends that I couldn't even like open my emails, you know. I was just like, my brain can't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the balance of, I would just try to go for a walk every day, at least, you know, just like get some fresh air, get a bit of daylight, and then kind of go back to getting ready. It's hard when your bedtime is between, like rationally between 4, and that's pretty early, but 4 and 8 a.m., you know, kind of depending on what is happening after, but, you know, between 4 and 6 a.m., and you want to be rested so that you can be real chipper at night.
Of course, right? And that
really,
can be a
care
struggle.
about you.
Well, at least, you know, we'll welcome home.
Thank you.
Yay, back in Vancouver. It's been a little while. You had a show last night, was it?
Yeah, it was fantastic.
I'm going to try to come by next week because obviously I'm teaching now. Well, I won't be teaching anymore for the next while, but I want to definitely come see you.
Yeah.
But it's okay. So is this something so it's a new burlesque troupe, Bad Girls?
It's called Bad Company.
Bad Company.
And it's not a troupe, but it's a group of 6. I want to say 6, but it could be 7. Don't quote me. I had to look at all my babes that I know together, who produce a night. And so between the producers, one of them will perform and one of them will host, and they rotate. Some of them will sweep. They do all the other jobs in the burlesque sort of show structure, and they rotate, and they hire guest performers as well. So they hire 3 guests. One of them performs, one of them hosts, and then they kind of share the duties.
Oh,
and,
cool.
Yeah, it's at the Morrissey Pub
every
Tuesday. So cute and intimate, like you mentioned Kiefer. Just like a little bigger than Kiefer, of course, but same kind of ideal. Just a nice weekly show. I mean, it's like from 8 to 10, so you can still get to bed on time for your school nights.
Perfect.
And it's real charming. It's nice and diverse. It's up close and personal and intimate, and yeah, the city really needs something like that. We don't have.
We haven't had that in a long time.
Really long time.
Like since you guys stopped Sweet Soul Burlesque.
Yeah.
There hasn't been really anything weekly like that.
No, and we had the Kiefer for 5 years. Yeah. Like 5 solid years doing every Thursday night, which was awesome.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of us miss it. I mean, it's a lot to run a weekly show, of course.
Yeah.
And like when you start to develop more into yourself and like your art, some people branch off to do other things, of course, and so it's just sort of times change and venues change, but it was really special, so I'm glad that company is there doing it.
So excited to check that out. Of course, we'll plug everything at the end of the show, but yeah, I guess let's start at the root of things. So like burlesque, how did you start? How did you get involved? What's your story on that?
I sort of wanted to be a stripper since I was 8. Like, I was real young and real obsessed with fancy naked ladies, dancing girls, showgirls, like any movie or music video that had some sort of scantily clad babe on it. I was like, oh, you're queer and you want to dance naked. Great news. Like, just like, yep, all the things. But, I mean, I went through lots of stages, as I was growing up. Like, I was real punk rock, I was real hippie, I was a raver for a while, and everything was sort of connected to music and movement. I used to be a figure skater. Like, I really loved moving.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it really took me coming into, like, my own to, like, I knew I wanted to do burlesque before I knew what burlesque was. I just was drawn to this concept because back then, kiddos, we didn't have the internet. I mean, it was around, but it wasn't as lush as it was now. It was more like old movies and books and things that you find at the library, and and I started to do some research when I finally saw my first burlesque show in like 2000 and maybe 2005 or something.
Okay.
Or early 2006.
Wow.
I was like, this is what I was thinking of, because I would go to strip clubs and I would be like, okay, awesome, but not what I was thinking. Like, I wanted more. And from working in strip clubs and from going to see burlesque shows, the narrative and the structure, the audience, like who is watching and what the performers are portraying, they are a little different. There's just a different interaction. And I would be so mad at people in these strip clubs in these early days, not even watching these dancers. And in turn, of course, dancers, like, you have to reserve your energy. So they're doing, like, the bare minimum on stage. Because,
I'm guilty of that.
Oh my gosh.
It's a lot of freaking work.
I legit, if there are 2 people in that damn club, they get shit all. Like, I'm sorry. Unless they're up front, like, dumping a bunch of money. And I'm like, I will do everything for you.
Yes, agree 100%.
Wholly reserve that energy. And so I didn't understand how to navigate that when I was younger. I was just like, okay, like, I want more. Like, I wanted a show. I wanted interaction. But I didn't realize that's what burlesque was.
Right. And you didn't even know what the word for that was.
No.
Like,
I was just like, I wanted naked art that was weird and political and, like, and striking and diverse and, and so, I mean, strip clubs are not... they're getting a little better. I mean, before you couldn't even have tattoos, whereas now they're a little more diverse, but
more progressive
in a confine.
Ways.
Yeah. Unlike burlesque, which is like, is there borders? I don't know.
Anything goes.
Yeah. So I found a couple shows I went to, and I started to get to see who's like putting them on, and just saying hello, and just being like, I want to do this. And one producer's like, oh yeah, I'll put you on the stage. Just let me be clear, that doesn't happen anymore.
No, that does not. That's very rare.
Yes, now there's like there's schools and things. But He's like, I'll give you a shot, kid. Like, not exactly like that, but kind of. I was like, no shit, really? And he's like, I'm sure you could do it. And I was like, okay. So that's how I got my first booking.
Oh my gosh.
And I legit just went home and I was like, do I even own lingerie? Like, I was 26 years old. I thought I was like very in denial of my femininity in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. I really loved like a bit more androgynous feelings. I really loved like tomboyish. All these words are kind of expired, but that's the words I grew up with. So that was kind of a mentality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was very feminist with regards to don't tell me how to be a woman because I want to make it myself. But in that, I definitely put out a lot of masculine energy with regards to strength versus vulnerability and very much like power, punk rock, as opposed to like the 50s pinup, like, ooh, delicate flower. Right. Like, none of that existed in me. So I was like, do I even know how to do burlesque? Like, so I dug around my drawers, like, all black everything, of course. It's just like this bustier I had since I was like 19. I'm like, I don't know. So I just threw some shit together and I got on stage. And I mean, the dancing part was never a big deal. The getting naked part was never a big deal. It was just sort of, well, here I am, is where I was always meant to be, and I felt really great about it.
That's awesome.
I almost forgot that it's like, oh, taking off your clothes in front of people might be like nerve-wracking or something. So I was like, oh, hell, I don't care. But I wanted to be good. Like, I wanted to portray passion and energy and like connectivity.
Right.
So like that was always my worry. Like, oh, hope you like it. I guess I did.
Yes.
Because like I kept getting booked. Yeah, and then of course, I mean, it developed and progressed from there in regards to seeing way more shows, researching, getting together with other women to develop our art together and sort of explore together. So that was sort of like that's the origins of Baby Frost. Yeah.
Baby Frost! That's so cute. Oh my gosh. So how was like your initial persona? Because I've had this chat with other performers here on the show as well, not just in burlesque, but as strippers and dancers. How has, those first, Baby Frost, how have you developed over the years? Or like what kind of phases have you gone through? And what kind of journeys have you gone through in terms of like your process?
Like for the most part, I came out of the gate very branded. Like because I had taken like fashion school. I was in fashion merchandising, so I did a lot of styling. Okay. But was obsessed with the 20s. Mm-hmm. So if you watch any of my costumes, are all very art driven, like Art Deco driven. Right. They have like a little bit of that, like again, like that rock and roll edge, which is like where kind of like my moniker comes from, and I just really held on to that aesthetic and kind of ran with it. And for me, I think that my early progression was definitely like a lot of energy. It was a lot of more movement, I would say, like a little, and again, like that's nerves and that sort of like, again, not really knowing what you're doing, because to go slow for me was like, it felt very scary and very raw. And again, that femininity piece, how I want to go out there and be like, rah, 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 and fuck yes, look at me, and like dance, Yeah. And I did. Like I used to come off the stage just like soaked after like 3 minutes, because I was just like, let's do it. And a lot of like pieces from the early days also were very dark and very raw and very therapeutic. Right. Without it looking like, if you watch this show, you would be like, oh, like that's some like dark, rad stuff happening. It wasn't like, I'm just here to like get my therapy session. It was integrated into a way that was entertainment still.
Okay, interesting.
But there was a lot of sexual assault trauma that I worked through, like a lot of like reclaiming of power themes, things like that I was building through the early part of my burlesque. Some of it didn't start that way. It started moody and kind of, again, like more rock and roll. But like as I got into it, I was like, oh, like I can integrate how powerful I feel on stage, how I'm exploring my femininity, my masculinity, my sexuality, my presence, and then I can mix it with this bullshit that happened to me in my life. Right. And like heal from it, because you're reclaiming so much power up there, right? Like this is my space, this is my stage, like I'm telling you this story, and have people interact and celebrate you for it and you with it, and having other people feel very healed by seeing you, like in a person of my body type, and like everyone gets to identify with different people in burlesque because bodies are so diverse.
Yes.
And it's, instead of us seeing like Hollywood, we see reality, and it's very refreshing.
Right, I was just gonna say refreshing.
Yeah,
for sure.
So yeah, I just got to dig into some themes that, like, even when I look back, sometimes I'm like, whew, those audiences showed out a journey with me. Because then I progressed into like my sort of signature schmoozy, slow burn, panther serpent, I'm gonna eat you and you're gonna enjoy it and be rebirthed. But that was a progression, and it took me a bit to get there, because there was a bunch of trust I had to have in myself.
For sure.
And my audience. And
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's really just very enlightening to have those stories of yourself translated on stage, because it is very vulnerable for you to do that, and for you to get in touch with that side of you and to bring that into your art and into your performance. Very, very powerful stuff.
Yeah, it was, and that, I think, like, it's really, I had to go through that process, of course, to be able to teach as well, because I teach very, like, I love feelings, and so I like teaching emotional components to my students as well, or people that come to me for act development or coachings. I'm always going to distill it back into, like, what are you trying, like, what emotion are you trying to portray, what's holding you back, you know, from,
to
like,
tap into that.
Yeah, like, because even if it's like a bit more of like a more like lighthearted piece, there's still like your authenticity in there, and so, like, to get in touch with that before you are building something on top of it is really important, like, to be seen inside of the costume and the makeup, and just to not hold back, you know. So that's like, I developed that, I healed that for me, and so, like, translating that to my students, just like, here's some permission to be so much more yourself. Even though you're still dressed up, and even though you're acting out this, like, blown up version of yourself, there's still, like, self.
How do you really get into that? Like, what kind of advice would you give your students?
I mean, it kind of depends. I mean, everyone's so individual, right? And they come from different places. Although, my friend Harla said this last night, and I was like, just like all the snaps. I'm just like 100% that we're all linked through trauma, because every human has stuff.
Yeah. We all have shit.
We all have shit. So there is just this component of just acknowledging that you are not your trauma, and that you are not the shitty things that happen to you. And if you want to make art, like, you do have to tap into it and acknowledge it, so that you're not hiding from it, or that it's not triggering you in the wrong ways.
Right.
And, you know, it sounds like a therapy session, but, like, kind of, you know, without being so formal around it, it is just getting some support to know that you are okay, and you're still able to, like, shine in your, like, weird, naked, sexy, funny, political ways that you want to.
Right.
But it's up to you to do it, right? I can give you advice. I do give my students advice. I give them tips and tricks, or I share my own story, so that it's relatable and we don't feel so alone. But then you just really got to get up on stage and do it again and again and again in front of people.
Yeah. Practice, right?
Yeah.
So
let it come to life.
Yes. So what about teaching then? So how did you get started with that? I also wanted to ask you about the Vancouver Burlesque Center as well, and also other areas that you teach in.
Yeah, teaching for me, I reflect often about what I've wanted to be in my life, and, like, dancer, teacher, healer have always been, like, the three things that come up a lot. And so the teacher, I knew I was going to teach dance, but not really dance because I'm not formally trained. So, like, how am I going to teach something that I just make up as I go along? My mom was just like, only you, Lola, can make a career. No, but it's actually really funny, because I was styling a photo shoot, like a commercial photo shoot one day with a girlfriend of mine. Again, fashion school, a lifetime ago. And I overheard this, like, very attractive man talking about his wife, I think girlfriend at the time, and how she runs this like really cool alternative dance kind of fitness school. Like my ears were like just like little radar dishes. And he said, yeah, like she hires teachers based on like, you know, like what they contribute, like who they are. Just like the things that he was kind of saying, I was like, oh, maybe I should, you know, get in contact with this person. He's like, no. I was like, yeah, it's called Tantra Fitness. This handsome gentleman was Justice. And I was like,
oh, he's so sweet.
And so I just kind of reached out before I knew Tam. I'd never even been to the studio.
Oh my god.
And just sent her a message that I kind of heard about this place.
Mm-hmm.
So she brought me in with an interview with her and Crystal.
Oh my god, this is so long
back
ago.
on Cook Street in 2008.
Oh my gosh,
and,
so long ago.
She's like, yeah, we hit it off right away, and she gave me, they were teaching out at UBC at the time, so they had their studio, and they were giving progressives out at UBC, and they would bring poles out there. And she's like, do you want to do like a little burlesque progressive? And I'm like, absolutely. She goes, and then if it's successful and like you're liked and you're not crap, we'll hire you at the studio.
Yeah.
And again, I guess I wasn't crap.
You're legitimized.
Yeah, and then she hired me. So I first started teaching through Tantra.
Wow.
And I got like weekly classes. I did a burlesque class.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I did like just like burlesque choreography and like chair dance. And then I started teaching like some sexy fitness. I took my like certification and taught like a stripper size type class, you know.
Yeah.
Fit really well with her brand. I taught for a little bit after a couple of years through iDance.
Oh yeah, iDance.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then I opened my own studio with my business partner Cherry.
No big deal.
No big deal. I mean, well, we rented a space and ran a business. Like, let's be real, I didn't buy a building. But we made the Vancouver Burlesque. Then it was the Vancouver Burlesque Center.
Yes.
Now is the Vancouver Burlesque Company. Mm-hmm. Just because we did lose our space last year.
Yes, I remember reading about that.
Yeah, just got a new one. So.
Yay! Congratulations.
Thank you. That's really exciting.
Yay.
It was a big blow to our world for sure. Even though again, like, because I wasn't here, like, I just knew how hard it was for everybody. But
yeah, and the community too.
Yeah.
Right?
So I left Tantra as like a full-time teacher, like teaching all the classes because conflict of interest. And Tammy was so supportive and so helpful, and she would still hire me for like burlesque workshops or like parties, and I would fill in sometimes, and she was just like always there being supportive. Of course,
she needs to be in the show. I keep saying this, like Tammy will be in the show at some point, guys.
At some point.
Yes.
Yeah, she's got some stories.
Yes, she does.
But yeah, I mean, I really credit her. She gave me my shot, right?
Yeah.
And through her opportunity, I got to really develop again my own style of teaching and like kind of figured out that stuff. And working with Cherry, we just sort of got to develop what we wanted to teach out of burlesque, and people kept coming, Yay! Yeah, and now we've brought on our other business partner, Ariel Helvetica.
Cool, yes.
Which is awesome. She's a real asset to the team and to the community and the industry as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're grateful to be working with her. It's 8.5 years since we started this business.
No way!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
is
that long already?
My little brain's like, time is a construct. It's a couple years ago. I was like, no, it's like,
wait a minute.
Time.
Wow,
yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we're excited. And I teach like workshops like the Island, right? Victoria and Nanaimo. I know a couple. One of my first students from Tantra has her own studio in Nanaimo, Lux Studios.
Oh.
Lisa, she runs Lux Studios in Nanaimo.
Okay.
And she's had that for also several years. It is very successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I love teaching there. It's super great. And then of course when I travel for burlesque, wherever I am, either Canada, the US, or in Europe, the producers help me produce workshops.
That's amazing. It's so good to have that support.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Like, I'm eternally grateful for those opportunities. It's like, thank you. And like people that show up and pay money to learn from me, I'm like, really? Thank you so much. I am so happy to lead you into the weird and wonderful ways of movement and sexuality. So.
Yes. And then I think you're starting to start teaching again slowly.
Mm-hmm.
At Tantra again, yeah.
Yeah, and so I just took my Pilates teacher training, which
Ooh,
a lot of people that you've interviewed already have taken too.
Yes.
It's wonderful for the body. Of course, my body is so broken. And I wanted something else to teach that was more functional along with the arty kind of stuff. And teaching back at my studio, teaching a couple classes at Tantra. I have an audition shift with Y Yoga.
What?
Yeah, to get on teaching Pilates. So
very cool.
Here's my affirmative speaking. So when I get that position, I will be teaching Pilates at Y Yoga.
Yay, that's exciting. Well, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yes.
Okay, so wow, so many things there. You mentioned something early on in the podcast that I wanted to talk about and also bring up. So, in terms of burlesque versus stripping in strip clubs, can you name a few different, like, what are the main differences there in terms of like money, in terms of working and stuff like that too as an artist, and those major differences? Yeah,
I'll say there's two things that I always say to anyone who asks those questions. And one of the definitions was given by Jo Boobs Weldon, who former exotic dancer, like former exotic stripper, feature entertainer of those times. And she's sort of like the foremother of the burlesque handbook. So when she transferred into burlesque, she wrote a book about it, and it's amazing, and we respect her. All hail Jo Weldon. But she's the one that said, quite simply, the main difference is the audience. And so it's when you go to a burlesque show, you buy a ticket, you watch a show. You're there watching something happen. And in a strip club, you can go to a strip club and not even watch a show. Like, you can sit at the bar and drink, you can talk to girls, you can just talk to your buddies, you can play pool. Like, there's a lot that happens from an audience perspective that you don't get interacted with.
Right.
So it's a primary difference. And I also think the difference as well of what you're putting on stage as a performer is a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure.
Same, but different. In exotic dance, you are there to make money. It is a job. It is a transaction. And yes, there is glorious art happening on the stage. But then there's also some girls that just walk around on stage. But you know what? They make their money too. And it doesn't matter. You can be a walking wiggler, and you can be an aerial artist, and the function for it is money.
Yeah, it's the same outcome.
Yeah, and so in burlesque, I mean, you want to make some money for your art, but you're not there to hustle your audience into A, liking you, B, giving you money. You're there to like share some little piece of yourself with them. And another friend of mine, I believe it was Maggie McMuffin from Seattle.
I love that name.
I know, she's really great. They said that one of the main differences as well is that as a burlesque performer, you're there to download your fantasies and your ideas onto your audience.
Right.
Whereas in a strip club, the audience is there to download their fantasies onto you.
Right, it's the other way around. Right.
And that there is the consensual environment for that. Like, you understand when you walk into a strip club, you're like, fantasy, I'm here to exchange money for it.
Yes.
Whereas in burlesque, you bought that ticket, that's our consent to download our fantasies onto you.
That's a really great way of explaining it.
Yeah, I thought about it once or twice.
Rehearse this response.
There's a couple times I've been asked that. So.
There we go.
Yeah.
So I remember you mentioning earlier, like, the money just isn't there.
Yeah.
And because they are two very different worlds, but also there's a lot of intermingling almost and so much overlap. Do you want to speak a bit on that as well?
We call it like being like sisters, not twins, or family cousins, because they are very interconnected, of course.
Yes.
All exotic dance comes from burlesque. It was the first stripping, and the same thing where the feature dancers and the headliners of the burlesque world faded out because anyone could just take off the top and dance around, which is fine, but the true artists of that were kind of faded out. The same thing in the 80s and 90s for the high feature performers in the exotic dance world. Clubs didn't want to pay them as much, also fizzled out a little bit. So there's that sort of balance. So in burlesque, the money comes from being hired from a production, right? And again, those productions be like, you're planning a huge show for months at a time, and then you get your fee to be on stage for that one night, right? For a couple of acts, as opposed to being hired at a club and working every night for a week. Yeah. And so, that balance is just different. The overlap is that again, like me being a hybrid, on my stripping stages, I still do burlesque. Like, I'm still interacting with my costumes.
Yeah.
I'm still being intentional with my movement and my removals. I'm still engaging my audience in a way that is, you know, fun and interactive. There's just different elements at play. Because sometimes if you're being that way and your customers aren't watching, you're like, well, you're missing all the other components of this act. Because girls are like, oh, do a burlesque show next. I'm like, I do it every time. But it's just the elements of what underlying burlesque, again, like the intention, the kind of artistry, and not just walking to the corner, dropping your bra in the corner and keeping on walking. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that the art of the striptease and the interactions with your costumes and movement and making it playful and interactive, it gets lost unless you really see it happening.
Right.
Because some people are like, guys at strip clubs are like, you're like kind of like different, hey? And I'm just like, eyebrow waggle, like, real different. But like it's weird because like, yeah, I'm still stripping and I'm still in a strip club, so they see it for that environment. But there is that integral, my training and like my practice for so many years, that it's just a little different because that's what I've practiced being for so long.
Right.
You know, so interconnected. Yes. But a little different.
I like that. Again, wow, you're explaining things so greatly today. I'm so appreciative of it.
Please.
Do you think that burlesque is gaining more in popularity, or do you think it's fading? Or where do you think it's going?
Yeah, those are three very specific questions.
The loaded question.
Like, yes, no, and wait, what was the last one?
Where do you see it going?
Oh, yeah. Wherever anyone wants it to go. So yes, no. So basically, gaining popularity, yes. So the weird thing is, though, I keep forgetting, because I've intermingled and surrounded myself in this lush community and industry of burlesque for so long, that I forget that there are still women who hate their bodies. I'm like, yes. Oh, there are still, like, I mean, and I'm using, like, female pronouns just because there's so much about what we teach and sort of integrate for like the female gendered humans.
Yes.
That is important because society has done so many messed up things to our psyches and our outlooks. And of course, all genders, all non-genders also have their own stuff, but I'm just speaking from being a female identified person and still have people come to my classes and come to my shows that are blown away with the permission given by just, again, a body like mine or anyone they see at a burlesque show, getting power from that for their own strength. So it's like, so that part of burlesque, that sort of like little intrinsic thing aside from all the rest, because self-love is a radical act, do you know what I mean? Like rebelling against the patriarchy to be like, I don't have to be how, you know, you say I am. And like, although us in the know, us who are more awake,
we're woke.
Understand this. There's a lot that don't, and like they haven't got there. They're still, the blinders are still on, or they don't have an outlet that supports that. Like there's so much toxicity in supporting each other, right? Yeah. Unless you're actually in environments that support each other.
You might not be able to tap into that or not be exposed to that, right?
Yeah, and so like your confidence or your outlook can be like a little bit skewed still, or like you want to have that power, but you don't know where to put it. And not everyone that takes a burlesque class needs to get on stage or wants to be a performer. Right. They just want that expression, that outlet. And that is still, so like for me, like burlesque will always be popular in some way. And going to see a show of some arty naked weirdos is so fabulous. Like, you walk into this place and everything's so perfectly imperfect. And you're like, sometimes you're like, what the fuck is happening up there? And you're like, I'm so into it. And other times like, this is so beautiful and polished. And like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just underground art, overground art. Like burlesque, because it's stripping, in a sense, will always be a little underground. Right, yeah. Because naked bodies. Yeah. It's, for frick's sakes, like, what the hell is 2020? And we're still like, oh, bodies! Oh my god. For real. Yeah, it's crazy. So, yeah, they'll still be a little bit. Fading out? No, but there is definitely because it's very saturated.
Yes.
Your shows have to be very good. They have to be interesting. They have to have multiply disciplinary, different bodies, different sort of like skin, like just everything should be intentional and thought out, because just going to see a bunch of skinny white bitches take their clothes off, and again, there's nothing wrong with being a skinny white bitch, but it just to make an art form stay, it has to stay interesting, and it has to be diverse, and it has to like rise up from a place where it started, and that's again up to producers, up to venues, like still hiring it, because we can all throw a show tomorrow, but no one's going to come again unless it's diverse and powerful, and doesn't have to have like a crazy message, but it's just going to be an accessible and good art that you keep wanting to celebrate and like have a good time.
Right, no, definitely.
Yeah.
And are you also speaking in terms of like specific acts too, that they need to differentiate themselves, or just like the production of it all?
Sometimes, burlesque started as a variety show. So you would have one or two strippers, like burlesque dancers.
Right.
But burlesque was like the name of the show, as opposed to just an artist that was. Because they'd have jugglers, and they'd have comedians, and they would have, it's a variety. And so doing a show like that, I think having different disciplines of acts is also a great way to diversify.
For sure.
And it's interesting to watch like more of the aerial and the circus kind of come into it, and how they're like, totally, I'm like a contortionist, or I do like lyra, and then like and they're like skilled, and they're skilled, and they're skilled, like, oh yeah, bloop, took my clothes off, now I'm burlesque, and I'm skilled. But the integration of multiple disciplines into one is what makes a really great burlesque act. So yeah, people just like to be entertained, and I don't think that's ever going to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, definitely.
You can peel yourself away from the Netflix, pay $10 to $20 to go see some rad weird art. I think everybody should. Yeah,
absolutely. Because as you said earlier, like live entertainment and like burlesque shows and like just weekly like live entertainment, it's just like dying.
Yeah.
I just don't see any of that stuff anymore. It's so frustrating.
It's so frustrating because it's visceral. Like it's like the feeling that you get like in your body when you're watching live art is so much better than on video. Like, and it doesn't translate. Like you can't tap into emotions through a screen. No. It's very, very challenging. So
it's not the same.
No, pop in and feel it. And then, sorry for the last question.
Oh yeah,
again, my brain.
Where do you see burlesque going?
Right, and that definitely is. That's like, again, Joe says, or was it indigo blue? I'm getting my quotes mixed up. Be the art you want to see in the world. Right. So what is it that you want to create? What is your end goal? Like, what do you want your audiences to be left with at the end of the day? And that's individual. Again, producers, performers, you have to be it, because the bar down the street is not going to knock down your door and be like, hey, do you want to do a burlesque show? You have to be the one creating it. And so if you're not creating it, it's not happening. And that's, the future of burlesque is just what you're making it.
Oh, okay.
I think.
What about for yourself? Like, where has burlesque taken you? Did you ever imagine that you would kind of be here when you first got on stage at 26?
No, hell no. I'm not like unegotistical enough to say that like I wanted to be a good performer. I didn't know the world of burlesque existed kind of beyond Vancouver until I went to the Burlesque Hall of Fame in 2010. And that came like a really pivotal point in my sort of career. I've been doing it for a while, and like I said, I was working for like, I think it was Lululemon at the time, and they wanted me to come to head office and like really kind of like, we support your goals, but you're gonna have to stop doing burlesque so much because we need you here. And it's like fair, because I was traveling already a little bit for it, and they were just kind of like, buckle down. I'm like, sure. Well, I just got into debut at the Burlesque Hall of Fame, which is like our Oscars, our Super Bowl. It's like the biggest kind of event. And I was like, okay, after I debut, and then I can retire. I was like, ha. Everyone laughs at me because I was kind of at that point, like all or nothing. And I just saw the global scope of what burlesque was. And I was like, oh, no, this is much bigger than I ever thought it ever was. And I'm not going nowhere.
No, beginning.
I do have a lot more to say.
And that was back in 2010. That was the first time you had ever been to the Burlesque Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it really just opened my peripheral just got so wide, and I was so inspired. Yeah, so I definitely did not see that kind of taking me here. I'm grateful for it because, again, I grew up in a small town up north in BC, and I'm just like, I just want to be a traveling showgirl. Did you even know what that meant? Not really, but that's definitely a pipe dream I had. So I'm glad that the universe sort of let me manifest a path to that, and I guess there's a bit of hard work in there, and so
yeah, absolutely,
some art, but yeah, I am really grateful, and like I say, because of the heavy touring that I have been doing and the opportunities that I have been given, I am ready to come back to Vancouver, set some more roots in. I want to focus on teaching and both also heal my body, and last year was really hard for me, spiritually, emotionally, physically. It was a very 2019 R.I.P. Just burn it on fire. So many people are just it was trash.
Yeah, it was. I'm okay with skipping that year.
Yeah,
I accomplished nothing.
Hey, it took a toll on me, but that's sort of my focus now. And of course, performing. I love performing, and now that I'm home, I have more time to sort of focus a little bit on that. But I do want to dedicate myself to more of my students in the classroom, and
for sure.
What I want to say with the next bit of workshops and things that I'm building, as opposed to me crafting these elaborate show ideas, I'm crafting these elaborate and sort of more integrated workshops. Yeah, very intimate. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The workshops are really important to me, and interestingly enough, combine a bit of exotic dance, a bit of burlesque, and a whole lot of that juicy feelings component. And,
that's so interesting.
Yeah, and that's sort of where I want to focus my energy. I turn 40 next month.
What?
So,
no way!
Yeah,
oh
this
my
is
gosh.
I know coming into my 40s powerfully is I know that I'm meant to be building something towards my next decade. The same thing I did when I was 30. It was very, very focused for me. That was, the last decade was show life. And this decade is studio life. Studio life,
getting back to your roots. That sounds awesome.
Working on some retreats.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Do you want to speak about that?
No, I can't yet. It's still formulating.
I'm just so excited about that. Oh my gosh.
I just really just want to get real juicy with some really rad people and go deeper.
So exciting. I can't wait to talk to you about that later. Off the air. What else do I want to mention here? I guess, what about your erotic writing and poetry? Is that still something that you do as well or dabble in? Do you even have time?
The time is of the no, and also the emotional exhaustion. Sometimes I can't even post on Instagram. So I'm if you want to see me, you will come and see me in real life. Don't even look at a picture of me. You don't deserve it. Yeah, I love writing. It scares the shit out of me to write, and it very wrapped up into the permanency of it, and I just freak out because I was such a bad speller and my grammar is terrible. But I like expressing ideas, and to be honest, ever since I got these acrylic nails,
it's some claws. You guys might have heard it throughout the episode.
It's really hard to sit down at a computer and clack out my ideas. It sounds the lame excuses. People are always bugging me write blog posts and it's if I'll give a speech in a class and people can I read that somewhere? And oh, those are my half-assed notes. I'm can you please write a blog post about it? I'm maybe one day. So I would like to. It's not something that I keep up with right now. The time is a huge thing. Very much. And there's just lots that I do want to write about, especially going forward. When I start writing for workshops and things, it's really where I get a nice flow as well.
For sure. So, lots of inspiration there.
I'll be back, but I haven't written a poem for a while or a blog post about some sort of political personal thing for a little bit, but I do enjoy it.
You have to get into that space too, and the whole mentality too, because it just takes so much out of you, I find, at least personally.
I'm very attuned also to voices that are inclusive, and sometimes when I start writing in an inclusive form, I find that it can get the scope gets very large, and so I'm wanting to like distill what I want to write about into being, again, like very personal and very focused from like a self perspective, as opposed to kind of tackle like a huger topic. Like, does that kind of make sense?
No, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I really want it to be personal, and to express my personal stuff right now is hard because like, I'm just so exhausted. Less now that I'm home. I mean, that's the thing, is like to tap into like deep personal work is a healing, right?
Yes.
So if you're not ready to heal and to go into those spaces, it can just seem like tackling like a huge pile of whatever, I don't know, laundry, if that's your thing. It's just like a mountain of stuff that you have to sort of sort through in your mind and sort of unfurl, and that's that also takes time. So.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm here for it.
But I like what you said there. That's really interesting. And also you mentioned, okay, so you define yourself as a dancer, teacher, and healer. Do you want to speak a little bit more about the latter part there, about healing and healer as a title?
Well, I just, like, being an empath, like, really, like, being a really empathetic person, there is just an energy about, like, you know, holding space for people. Like, I don't pretend that I'm, like, a crazy Reiki master or, like, crystal, you know, like, I'm a witch. I identify as a witch, for sure. But there is just something about sharing space with people and allowing them to access their healing through your healing. You know, it's hard because if you look up healer, like, I don't pretend to be a shaman or anything that, but there is just that being very connected to the self, being connected to your earth, being connected to energy, and being connected to your fellow humans, that creating that space for people is very healing.
It is,
right?
yeah.
And the holding space for people, to make a safer space for people to explore, is part of that work. Like, I don't pretend that I'm here to heal you. You know, I'm not, like, walking in to do healing sessions, but creating healing environments where people can feel safer and to explore their boundaries and limits within how deep they want to go with the work. And that's a part that's the last component. So although I know that I provided healing environments before, like, that's my next decade's work, is to, like, integrate much more of that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And part of that is being connected to each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, bringing people together to explore together. Like, even as simply as, like, lap dance workshops that I do, like, so they're not just like, hey, we're into some sexy moves. Like, we do that. But there's a whole bunch of layers inside of that where, again, they're female identified people can come together in a safer place to explore together. And, like, that radical self-love is healing, that, like, self-expression is healing, that, like, opening up to your pussy magic is exciting.
Pussy magic!
Yes. And is just incredibly healing. So that part of the healer is sort of how I identify. And again, it's not something that I would walk around labeling myself as, but it's something that I want to be able to provide for people. That
makes sense. Yeah, for sure. And you got the whole next decade to be working on that. I'm so excited to, like, maybe catch up with you in a couple of years and see, like, where you're at with that. Yeah. But I guess with that, we'll go into some Q&A. So we've got some questions here. I guess this one is from someone who's in the industry. So how do you manage to work if you're not on the circuit?
Oh, like, you don't. I mean, sorry. Shit, too real? Okay. I mean, I think Phoenix touched on this before too, about the Granville Strip, or, like, just being a house girl in general. In Western Canada, so from Manitoba west, we still have the showgirl mentality. You still have a schedule. You still do shows. Everywhere else in the world is not like that.
I know.
Nowhere else. It's just, you're VIPing or private dancing, so you're selling lap dances essentially, or non-contact private dances, depending on which province you are in. So basically, stage time is not really a thing. And in the East, like, I featured at the Newton in Ottawa, so I did have my feature shows. I had a schedule. I could also sell private dances. But everyone else that works there, so much of the States, you have to go on stage for a song or two, but you're there to work the floor.
Right.
So in Western Canada, unless you work the circuit and you don't have a cushy house girl job, and applaud those girls that have those gigs. Like,
seriously.
Like, that is where it's at. You sleep in your own bed. You're in your own city. You can train. You can eat well.
Goals, guys.
Holy. But that is like 1 in 1,000.
Yeah, that's very rare.
Different. So unfortunately, you just call me for tips and tricks. Get on the road.
Yeah, unfortunately,
you know,
that's where money's at. So
yeah,
unless you're lucky. So
exactly. Or if you just want to freelance.
Right.
If you don't want stage time, just go down to a club and hustle dances.
Yeah, pay your floor fee and hustle. Hustle if you got it.
My soul is just like drained from my body. I'm just thinking about that.
Like, absolutely not.
Oh my golly. It's a hard business, people. Tip your damn dancers.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Who do you look up to? Do you have any mentors and or role models?
I look up to quite a few people. I mentioned Joe Boobs. Yeah, I mean, my girlfriend Cherry, I know that's like so obnoxious of me, but I'm just like, she's such an inspiration to me.
Aww.
She's like such a hard worker.
Yeah.
She's so passionate. She's so powerful. I've been inspired by her for years. And, you know, I consider her like an equal and a partner, you know, to me, but it's just such a thing. There's a woman named Shannon Clough. She's like unrelated. She was in Sweet Soul back in like 2004 or something.
Oh, wow.
For like a hot
way
beat.
back in the
like
day.
Yeah, a hot beat. Never really there for burlesque, but she is a movement sort of instructor. She's gone through like yoga, Pilates, things like that. But her as a person, holistically, and like just, I feel like she's like a mentor. She's so strong and powerful, like in herself, that I feel greatly inspired by her. She teaches around the city as well, but just her presence. Yeah. I mean, there's also other people I admire in the scene, you know, things like that, that have inspired me to push out of my
comfort zone?
Yeah, my stage comfort zone, where I'm just like, I've seen their level of performance, that I'm like, again, it gave me permission to not hold back, right? There's a billion names. I mean, I'm just like, sometimes they're relevant, sometimes they're not. But I mean, just research the greats of burlesque, like Dirty Martini, Julie Atlas Muse. I mean, modern ones like Media Noche or Michelle L'Amour. Like, there's the people that were there that were already established and doing it when I came into it are people I look up to. Okay. Right? And now it's a weird shift, because nowadays it's like the people coming in, I'm like, I'm one of those established people coming, 14 years down the road, I guess I've been doing it for a minute. Which is really interesting to watch the progression, because again, like I don't consider it as the years go on. Like it's until like a chunk of time passes where you're just like, oh yeah, I guess I'm still doing it, and people like have watched me perform over the years. That's weird, you know. It just kind of like, yeah, you're just kind of in the zone and not really realize that's happening. But
totally,
strong, powerful, female-identified folks have been really influential to me.
That's amazing. I'm gonna have to Google a bunch of those names later. Not gonna lie. And I guess the last one here: how does one make a living? I guess we kind of maybe went over this a little bit. But how does one make a living as a burlesque artist as opposed to a traditional stripper? Unfortunately, guys.
Okay,
so paying attention.
We made this joke last night. So after the show, I was changing, and Harla and Donna were like, "Oh, Lola, we put your money in your suitcase, just fold it up into that set list." And I'm like, "What money?" And they were both like, ha, 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 ha. And I was like, but I actually like legit forgot that I got paid in cash. I just thought that, I was like, they'll email, transfer me or whatever. Yeah. And they were like, right? What money? Because there's no money in burlesque. And I was like, oh damn, self-burn. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I have a career out of burlesque, but it does not pay my bills. Mm-hmm. It pays part of my bills because I'm heavily booked. If I wasn't booked as much as I am now, you're a professional hobbyist. You know, it's a labor of love, folks. And like, if you want to do a bunch of shows and you get real good and you have good costumes and the producers like you and people just know you and you're going to be booked, okay, that's part of it. Mm-hmm. But then you have your side hustles. Yeah. And maybe you're a teacher, or maybe you do social media, or maybe you do costuming. Like, none of the burlesque dancers you see are exclusively burlesque dancers.
Secret's out, guys.
Secret's out. It's not a move.
It's not a move.
Work hard at your craft. Do lots of shows, but don't quit your day job. Again, unless you have a ton of side hustles. And it's not for everybody. It's the same with like, can I work as a stripper without being on the circuit? Like, you know, be prepared to be a scattered, hopefully organized. I feel like I have a decent organization, but if you like schedules and you like consistency, this is not the world to get into.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hustle, guys, and it is work, so be prepared if that was your plan.
And maybe try just like doing your job, like keep your muggle job, and like try to book as much extra stuff as possible and see how you feel. See how your burnout feels inside your body, and then decide how much you want to do.
Yeah, burnout's a thing, and aftercare is super important.
So important.
In these jobs, it's so physical and so tiring, right?
Oh my gosh, you also give a lot. Like there's so much energy that comes out of you when you're exchanging it with people all the time, you know, with your audience. There's a lot of give and take, and so emotionally be prepared to have energetic fluxes as well.
Yeah, for sure. But I guess with that brings us to the end of the show. But before I let you go, where can we find you?
Because I've been here since the internet started. It's like funny because it's true. I am at Lola Frost at literally everything you could possibly imagine, including at Gmail, the Twitter, the Facebook, the Instagram. I don't do Snapchat because just text me. Like, it just seems pointless. So every other social media you can find me just at Lola Frost. I have like my blog is up still. I have my calendar of events on it as well.
Okay.
But that's kind of the only thing I update these days. But stay tuned for blog posts. Also, the Vancouver Burlesque Company, obviously. Please come take my classes, take our classes. We got lots of great instructors there teaching some rad shit for cool body moving. So yeah, mostly progressives and things like that. And the Vancouver International Burlesque Festival is the first week of April.
Okay.
So depending on when this comes out.
Yeah, this might be around the same time, actually.
Yeah, my birthday is March 28th, so I don't know. If it comes out before then. But yeah, they've hired me as a headliner this year, which is really special to me.
Congratulations!
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh,
Very
huge.
special. Co-headliner, I say, because there's a couple headliners, so I don't want to pretend I am like the only one. But yeah, it's a 3-day festival. It's at the Vancouver Playhouse. People from all over the world come to perform, and it's really a fantastic time. So buy tickets and come watch us.
Yes, buy tickets, and I'll be sure this episode comes out before then. That's so fantastic. Anything else you want to plug?
I don't think so. I mean, I feel like the internet would just tell you where
just Google her, guys.
Yeah, like there's me, there's my studio, and there's the festival. I feel good about that.
So awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the show today.
It's a true pleasure.
So great. I'm so honored to interview you. I've been a fan forever.
Yes, I am a fan of yours too, and I can't wait to see you more in the studio and see how much you have progressed, which I just love your videos.
It's been a hot minute.
Yes, right.
But thanks so much for listening, guys. That's Script by Sia. That's pretty much my Instagram, and if you want to follow me on my personal, it's Sia Steph. Don't forget to like, rate, subscribe, follow, all things, 5-star review and Apple would be great. And that's pretty much it for this week. We'll catch you guys in for another cool buggin' episode next Sunday.
Hey.
Thanks, Lola.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Listening to Stripped by Sia, produced and hosted by Steph Sia, aka Kimchi, music by Ted D,